Peace, love, and light to the family. Ordained Metaphysical Minister Corbin reporting live. Chapter 3, right back at you. Chapter 3, right back at you. I'm not going to waste no time. In this presentation, you will be getting an introduction to Enoch. I thank y'all for rocking with me and bearing with me, as some of you are hearing the secret mysteries of our time. The initiates knew this, but the everyday person did not know this stuff. We are now in the age of Aquarius, like I told you so many times, where things are going to be revealed. You're going to know who you spiritually are. And for those who have been watching with your patience and your due diligence, I thank you so much. And this presentation is like chapter 3 that I know you guys really appreciate. I'm going to do a quick recap. After I do that, I'm going to go right straight into chapter 3. You're going to be hearing some life-changing information. History, of course, we know was his story. So when you're dealing with his story, you got to expect some things to be not really as they're supposed to be, as you're going to find out for the first time. For the first time, as you hear some stories that you never thought you may have heard before or were hear before. So we're not going to waste too much time on chapter 3. Chapter 2 was a rush. And when I mean a rush, it was an adrenaline rush. For chapter 3, let's go more mystic. Let's go more esoteric in revealing your truth and your knowledge. So I thank you for your patience. Let's do a quick recap. Then we're going right straight into chapter 3. Let's go. Modern science has taught us to think of the sexual urge as something impersonal, something that has a will apart from our own, as an expression of the will to survive of the species. For the ancients, too, the sexual urge was an expression of a will beyond the individual. They saw sexuality impelling us towards the great moments of our lives, because they saw how sex controls who we are born to, as well as determining the people we are attracted to. A man in the ancient world might see a woman he desired and be overcome by a quite frightening and overwhelming desire. He would know that the rest of life would be shaped by her response. He would also know that the roots of his desire lay very, very deep, having their origins long before his present lifetime. He would know that the sexual desires that drove him towards that woman was not merely biological, as in the modern account, but had other dimensions, spiritual and sacred. If the planet of love had been steering them towards this meeting, then so too had the other great gods of the sky been preparing this experience for them over many, many millennia and through many incarnations. Today, we know that when we look at a distant star, we are seeing something that happened a very long time ago. Because of the time it has taken for the light from the star to reach the earth, the ancients knew another truth, which is that when they contemplated their own will, they were also looking at something which had formed long before they were born. The ancients knew that every time they felt themselves merging with another human being in the sexual act, the flight of whole constellations was involved. They knew too that how they made love would have effect on the cosmos for millennia to come. When we make love, we are intersecting with great cosmic powers. My beautiful family out there. When we make love, we are interacting with great cosmic powers. This is going to be one of those presentations, by the way, family. When we make love, we are intersecting with great cosmic powers, and if we choose to do so consciously, we may participate in this magical act. It was this magical element in the sexual act that Reichle was referring to when he wrote that, and I quote, two people coming together in the night summing up the future. Wow. Once again, when we make love, we are interacting with the great cosmic powers, and if we choose to do so consciously, we may participate in the magical act. It was this magical element in the sexual act that the author Reichle, R-I-L-K-E, was referring to when he wrote that two people coming together in the night summing up the future. There is one further twist to this story. Let's bring it back to Osiris. I said there is one further twist to the story of Osiris. A dark shadow to an already dark story. We saw that Isis had a sister, Nephis. Now, if you watched the first chapter of the minister talking about Nephis, the author says that Nephis, which her name is spelled Nepthys, Nephis was the dark-skinned, this is what the author says, Nephis was the dark-skinned sister of Isis. She was also the wife of Set, who was Osiris's brother. So let's read this again. There is one further twist to the story of Osiris, a dark shadow to an already dark story. We saw that Isis had a sister, Nephis. I want you to make sure you spell this right, Nepthys. And there was a suggestion of sexual impropriety with Osiris. Some sexual fall from grace, perhaps. But later, Nephis used her magic powers to help Isis in her search for the body parts of Osiris and helped to bind them together again. To my scholars and everybody in between, listen to the next part. Listen closely to the next line. Nephis then is a figure representing some dark form of wisdom, fallen but capable of redemption. I told you this is going to be one of those presentations. Chapter 2 was an adrenaline rush. In chapter 3, we are dealing with real, deeper mysticism and esoteric knowledge, since this is the channel and the university for it. Isis, from Osiris and Isis, had a dark-skinned sister named Nephis. In this presentation, Nephis will not be the only dark-skinned sister in this presentation before we get to Enoch. I said Nephis, which is spelled Nepthys, who was the dark-skinned sister of Isis, will not be the only dark-skinned sister in this presentation. Let's bring that back one more time, and I want to thank you, my beautiful people, for your patience. But later, Nephis used her magic powers to help Isis in her search for the body parts of Osiris and help too to bind them together again. Nephis then is a figure representing some dark form of wisdom, fallen but capable of redemption. Do I have any Christian family? Hit the like button up. Don't be ashamed. Do I have any Orthodox Christians? You might want to hear this part. Orthodox Christians, pay attention. In Christian mythology, this same figure, this same spiritual impulse, reappear as Mary Magdalene. How many of y'all been rocking with my university for just for a little bit? Maybe some years, but maybe just this month. So you know I gave you 2 esoteric presentations and breakdowns of who Mary Magdalene was, right? So for you who've been watching, you know that Mary Magdalene, at 12 years old, was part of the Isis temple, where they taught sacred sexual techniques and teachings. 12 years old. Your churches couldn't tell you that. But this is a well-known fact through the Cathars and through the esoteric knowledge that was handed down in France. Let me read that part again. In Christian mythology, this same figure, this same spiritual impulse reappears as Mary Magdalene. We have been following the history of the fall. We altogether have been. We have seen that the fall was not the fall of human spirits into pre-existing material world. It is a very easy and common mistake to imagine it like this, but a fall in which human bodies became denser as the material world became denser. That's the true thing. We live in a fallen world. The author just said, we live in a fallen world. Just as myriad, M-Y-R-I-A-D, spirits help us to grow and evolve, so too others, just as numerous, work to destroy both us and the very fabric of our world. Talking about hidden ops, right? You got those benevolent spirits who love to help us, and then you have those spirits who, y'all in flesh, traitors. That's how some of these spirits look at us. This flesh. What is this? Skin. Ugh. That's how some of us look. That's how some of those demons look, yeah. So, let's go in. We live in a fallen world, just as myriad spirits help us to grow and evolve. So too others, just as numerous, work to destroy both us and the very fabric of our world. Christian mythology and in the secret doctrine of the church, the earth suffered and was punished for having fallen by having her own spirit imprisoned deep in the underworld inside her. In Christian mythology, Christian mysticism, esoteric Christianity, whatever you want to call it, my Orthodox family, but this does exist. In fact, listen to an old story that your churches may not have told you. In Christian mythology and in the secret doctrine of the church, the earth suffered and was punished for having fallen by having her own spirit, her own spirit imprisoned deep in the underworld inside her. Sometimes called Sophia, my mother, your mother. Sometimes called Sophia. Notably, in the Christian tradition, the wisdom is only reached when we travel down through the dark and demonic places of the earth and also of ourselves. Now, I want to stop right quick. I'm beside the house. I might have to reach over here and grab my drink. But I want to ask you a personal question, if you don't mind. I want to ask you a serious personal question, if you don't mind, my family. How many of you out there, hit the like button if you've been through this. You had to go through the trenches. To find your light, you had to go to the darkest of the darkest. I know that was my story. And through the dark is where I found my light. You understand? No different than Christ or Yeshua or the one you call Jesus after he was crucified and then going down to hell to redeem the souls. That's the process. And for those who successfully meet that process all the way through, then you're introduced to the mother. After all the hard stuff you've been through in your life, after all the struggles and trials and tribulations, at the end is the divine mother. That's the beauty of this, family. This is the beauty of me being able to sit back and talk to you with this gnosis and this knowledge. It's a beautiful thing. Let's read that again. Family, it says, we live in a fallen world. Just as myriad spirits help us to grow and evolve, so too others, just as numerous, work to destroy both of us and the very fabric of our world. Listen, in Christian mythology and in the secret doctrine of the church, the earth suffered and was punished for having fallen by having her own spirit imprisoned deep in the underworld inside her. This is all through different mythologies. Let's go. sometimes called Sophia. Notably in the Christian tradition, this wisdom is only reached when we travel down through the dark and demonic places of the earth and also of ourselves. It is because of Nephis. Remember, Nephis. Who's Nephis? I want to make sure you guys are on point. Who is Nephis? Nephis is the dark-skinned sister of Isis and also the wife, the Bay, of Osiris's brother Set, sometimes called Seth. It is because, listen, this is very serious. The churches won't give credit to our sisters. The churches won't give credit to magic. These are the things they tell you to disregard. But as you hear now in front of your face, this is really what it is. So listen, it says, it is because of Nephis, which is Isis' sister. It is because of Sophia that we all have need to touch rock bottom, to experience the worst that life has to offer, to wrestle with our demons, to test our intellect to its limits and journey to the other side of madness. My cosmic Christ family. Did you hear what I just said? I know a lot of you have been going through it for years, 10, 20 years. A lot of you are now just rising above. You're like the lotus now. You're finally floating. You're finally getting to where you want to be at. Whether you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and 70s, you are finally getting that life where you always know that you can enjoy it. And it wasn't nobody's blessing except you and your path that led you to God, which is self-knowing. The self-knowing God, which is you. As above, so below. So I'm going to read this again. I want to make sure that you understand what was just said. Listen to this. In Christian mythology and in the secret doctrine of the church, the earth suffered and was punished for having fallen by having her own spirit imprisoned deep in the underworld inside her, sometimes called Sophia. Notably in Christian tradition, this wisdom is only reached when we travel down through the dark and demonic places of the earth and also of ourselves. It is because of Nephis. It is saying because of this dark mother. Because of this dark mother and because of Sophia that we have a need to touch rock bottom to experience the worst that life has to offer, to wrestle with our demons, to test our intellect to its limits and journey to the other side of madness. This is what you have to understand as well, that the churches, the Orthodox churches didn't want you to know. And ladies, gentlemen, this is very important. To talk about the Divine Mother in Orthodox church, for them, in order for them to do that, for all those years that we know about church, then they would have to have given credit to a primordial dark energy. When I mean dark, I'm not meaning bad. I mean dark as this was the origins of everything. Before there was light, there was darkness. Tiamat, when you hear the story of Tiamat and Marduk, this is a level-changing consciousness event. When you hear about Sophia, Lilith, this is all about a higher, deeper, darker, esoteric knowledge that Orthodox churches was not ready to tell you about. But now we're in an age where you can learn it for yourself. You got people like me and other people that don't mind teaching you. We had to learn. But yes, there is a divine feminine energy that is coming back to this planet. It's getting real now. It is because of Nephis. Nepthys. And I want to make sure y'all put respect to her name. And there's going to be another sister, another melanated sister. All these, no matter what color they are, they're all sisters. But history, his story, has not completely and honestly gave credit to where credit due. So in this presentation, we're going to give credit to people like Nephis, the dark-skinned sister of Isis, and one more who we're about to tell you about right now. But listen, let's bring it back one more time. It is because of Nephis, it is because of Sophia the wisdom that we all have need to touch rock bottom to experience the worst that life has to offer, to wrestle with our demons, to test our intellect to its limits and journey to the other side of madness. of madness. Here we go. What did I say a while ago, family? I said Nephis was not going to be the only dark-skinned sister that you were going to learn about. But now you know about Nephis. Isis had Nephis, but Athena. Now we're going to Greek mythology. We just left Egypt mythology. Nephis was the dark-skinned sister of Isis. But Athena had a dark-skinned sister too. They didn't tell you that? Huh? Oh, they didn't tell you that in your history class. You probably know the name, but you didn't know she was a dark-skinned sister. That's cool. Anyway, where are we at, Minister? We know from Plutarch, Plutarch, a Greek philosopher, a Greek scholar, that in antiquity, Isis was identified with Athena. A lot of you know that too, that Athena and Isis equated. That's nothing new. The Greek goddess of wisdom. Let's bring that back because all of it is connected now. Remember, I told you in the past video, certain civilizations, after they would conquer the previous civilization, a lot of civilizations, after they would conquer the previous civilization, they would take the name of the gods from the civilization they defeated and they would merge it with their gods. So Isis became Athena. You get what I'm saying? So let's keep on going on. We know from Plutarch that in antiquity, Isis was identified with Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom. Athena had a half-sister. You probably knew the name from school, but never knew her complexion. I said you probably knew her name from school, but never knew her complexion. And there might be somebody out there right now saying, well, why color gotta matter? Color has to matter because our country, the world, has made it matter. You have put certain races in front of other people and other races without telling the truth on why you did that. So like Sami and Tokyo told him back in the day, there was going to be more of his kind to come. So now we're going to go ahead and let you know the truth on what they didn't want to tell you. So let's read this again. We know from Plutarch that in antiquity, Isis was identified with Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom. Athena had a half-sister, a dark-skinned girl called Pallas. Hit the like button if you didn't know that Athena had a dark-skinned sister. Hit the like button if you did. Matter of fact, after this or in the midst of you watching this right now, I want you to Google Athena's sister name, which is Pallas, Pallas. And one of my small issues with historians, especially, well, all over the countries, they know that some of these people that they put white statues on when you Google them, they know they're black. For example, Alexander the Great, mulatto. Josias Flavius, mulatto. John the Baptist, mulatto. Melanated. I'm just going to say melanated. All of them melanated. So was Pallas. So let's read this again. We know from Plutarch that in antiquity, Isis was identified with Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom. Athena had a half-sister, a dark-skinned girl called Pallas, Pallas, whom she loved more than anyone. Carefree, they used to play on the plains of Anatolia, Anatolia, running games, wrestling, and mock fights with spears and shields. But one day, Athena was distracted. She slipped and accidentally speared Pallas to death. From then on, she called herself Pallas Athena to acknowledge the dark side of herself. I told you it's about to get real mystic and it was going to get real dark. I guess all pun intended. Shout out to the Moorish family. I got a Christopher Columbus presentation coming real soon that's going to blow the minds off of everybody. Let's keep on reading. From then on, she called herself Pallas Athena to acknowledge the dark side of herself, just as in a sense Nephis represented the dark side of Isis. She also carved a statue of Pallas out of black wood to memorialize her. Now, if you Google Pallas, it's going to be obviously a bunch of white statues. But in one of those Google images, when you go and look at it, you're going to see Pallas, or maybe Athena, now that I think about it. You're going to see Athena, and you're going to see her hugging. It's going to be like some soldiers, like trying to pull her away. But you can see her hugging on to this black, I guess, wooden statue. But look that up as well. Once you type in Pallas, and you'll see that statue. But let's keep on reading. The statue called the Palladium, Palladium, carved by the hand of a goddess and washed by her tears, was reversed as an object of world-changing power in antiquity. When the people of Anatolia kept it in their capital, Troy was the greatest city in the world. The Greeks wanted to know what the Trojans knew. When they carried it off triumphantly, the leadership of world civilization passed to them. It was later buried beneath Rome in all its glory under the Emperor Constantine, moved it to Constantinople when it became the center of world spirituality. Today, it is said to be hidden somewhere in Eastern Europe, which is why in recent times the great powers, the Freemasonic ones, have sought to control this region. Family, this is what I'm hearing. You can say I'm taking it too far. Oh well. This is my university. I promise you, if you see my videos, I'm not. This is right around my alley. So what it sounds like to me, family, and you can let me know, that there was always an ancient dark energy that gave power, that gave light to civilizations. Whether it was because it was melanated or because it was a dark energy, all the same, it was never fully given its proper respect. Even today, when you see certain people being gunned down, certain melanated people being gunned down, you see in the movies how certain physiques, style, and flavor of the melanated people is being copied, is being drained. It's a lot. But just based off what I'm hearing here, that's a lot. Let's keep on going. The cult of Nephis, C-U-L-T of Nephis, together with its Greek and Christian equivalents, form one of the darkest and most powerful streams in occultism. Great forces like these shape the history of the world even now. So there's a bunch of powerful people in our country, US of MFNA, and other countries that collectively give power to this dark, black, melanated energy, which represents the cosmic energy. They gave the people the Bible and the religion, while the Freemasons, while the powerful people who you call the 1%ers, while in secret, they praise a dark mother. I want you to take time with that one. When Herodotus, remember, Herodotus has been he's been really informative for us. He's really have been Greek mythology scholar. So when Herodotus, Herodotus, was puzzling over the strange wooden statues of the kings who had reigned before any human king, What did you say, minister? When Herodotus was puzzling over the strange wooden statues of the kings who had reigned before any human king, the Egyptian priest told him that no one could understand this history without knowing about the three dynasties. Well, what's the three dynasties, minister? We about to talk about them. If Herodotus had been an initiate of the mystery schools, he would have understood that the three dynasties were first the oldest generation of creator gods. Hey, minister, can you repeat that one more time? Of course I can, of course. If Herodotus had been an initiate of the mystery schools, he would have understood that the three dynasties were first the oldest generation of creator gods. Saturn, Rhea, Rhea, and Uranus. The second generation made up of Zeus, his siblings, and their children, such as Apollo and Athena. And lastly, the generation of demigods and heroes. The author says this last generation is the subject of this chapter. All the while, matter was growing denser, and because matter and spirit are inimical, that's Inimical, the gods became less and less a constant present. The higher, the more ineffable the god, the harder it became to squeeze down into the tightening net of physical necessity that covered the earth. Great gods such as Zeus or Pallas, Athena, seemed to make their presence felt and intervene directly in human affairs only at a time of crisis. In the mystery schools, it was taught that a decisive change in this direction came about in 13,000 BC. From then on, the higher gods would find it difficult to descend further than the moon. This is pretty interesting, guys. We are getting some 5-star secret society mystery school information. Did you hear that? Let's read that again. In the mystery schools, it was taught that a decisive change in the direction came about in 13,000 BC. From then on, the higher gods would find it difficult to descend further than the moon. Further than the moon. Keep that in mind. Their visits to the surface of the earth became infrequent and fleeting. It was believed that on these it was believed that on these visits they accidentally left behind the strange and unearthly mistletoe, a plant which could not grow in the soil of the earth, but which grew naturally on the moon. So guys, we're hearing another world premiere. We got 3 different world premieres in this presentation. The author is saying that the mistletoe, and we hear mistletoe every Christmas, every holiday. You know, when you and yours has got a mistletoe, you kiss. So we are hearing, maybe some of us for the first time, that the mistletoe originates from the moon. Somebody do some science research on that and get back with me. But we're hearing for the first time that the mistletoe originated from the moon. Let's keep on going. We're doing good on time. We're doing good on energy. Let's keep on going. I want to thank you for your patience. Listen, without the presence of the greater gods to keep them down, the crab-like progeny of Saturn that had been imprisoned in underground caves began to creep up into the daylight again, infesting the surface of the earth and preying on humankind. Sea monsters also leaped onto the shore to drag off members of the tribe who had strayed too close. So we are hearing mermaid stories in our time now. Loch Ness monsters back in the day. Now we're getting confirmation about this. So the humans, our ancestors at those times, had a lot to deal with. Now Saturn is coming back and to kick human ass. We got sea monsters that are taking out our ancestors if they got too close to the water. Sea monsters like giants. If you ask me, I think we got it easy compared to a couple people shooting around, and not saying it's acceptable, but man, look what they were dealing with back then. Dinosaurs. Let's read that again. Without the presence of the greater gods to keep them down, the crab-like progeny, that's Progeny, of Saturn that had been imprisoned in the underground caves began to creep up into daylight again, infesting the surface of the earth and preying on humankind. Sea monsters also leaped on the shore to drag off members of the tribe who had strayed too close. Giants carried off cattle and sometimes preyed on human flesh too. Damn. Full-scale wars took place between humans and armies of other creatures, stragglers from the previous epoch. That means the previous age. Like, what are we talking about here in life? I want to have a serious conversation. You beefing with this person over here about small stuff. You beefing with this person. You hating yourself by the way you look, and you letting other people dictate you. Our ancestors probably would laugh at you hard time. Our ancestors probably would laugh at you hard body. Are you kidding me? They had to deal with sea monsters, giants, creatures from the last age. What are you talking about? What's beef? For real, for real. So let's read this again. Full-scale wars took place between humans and armies of other creatures, stragglers from the previous epoch. Remember, epoch always mean age. The war between the Lapis, or Lapiths. If you don't have a notepad and pen, then you're supposed to have a notepad and pen when you watch the channel, unless you're driving. And all my drivers, be safe on that road. Thank you for being true to the word. Full-scale wars took place. This is what our ancestors, y'all always giving shots to the ancestors. This is what our ancestors was dealing with. Full-scale wars took place between humans and armies of other creatures, stragglers from previous epochs. The war between Lapiths, that's Lapiths, a tribe of Neolithic flint nappers, that's Knappers, and the centaurs. We have all heard of centaurs. Centaurs, I can tell you what that is without even looking at a dictionary. Centaurs, and you know what they were too. Centaurs were those horsemen. Let me put respect on their name. They were men with horse bodies. It was real. Matter of fact, Google centaurs. Centaurs. And now that I think about kangaroos. Kangaroos might have been the cousins of centaurs because, man, when you see a kangaroo is going to square up on you, like muscled up, everything. So, centaurs is another, look, they were men from here to about here. They were human, if we could even use that word. But from down here, they had the body of a horse, man. Google that. Respectfully, Google that. Centaur. Centaurs. Google that. Let me know what you see. Y'all talking about ops. Y'all talking about ops. They did, our ancestors dealing with sea monsters and centaurs and giants. And you talking about ops. Okay. The centaurs had been invited to the wedding. Let's bring this right back. This is a beautiful thing. Full-scale wars took place between humans and armies of other creatures, stragglers from the previous epoch. The war between the Lapis, Lapiths, researched them, a tribe of Neolithic flint nappers, and the centaurs is recorded on the Parthenon frieze. The centaurs had been invited to the wedding of the leader of the Lapis, but were inflamed by the sight of the white, hairless bodies of the Lapia woman. They dragged off the bride and raped her, and her bridesmaids and page boys too. Wow. In the ensuing fight, a Lapith king was killed, and so began a feud that lasted for generations. There's an old saying, as above, so below. There's nothing new under the sun. I want to read this again. This is pretty interesting. The centaurs had been invited to the wedding of the leader of the Lapiths, Lapiths, but were inflamed. They were pissed off, highly upset, but were inflamed by the sight of the white, hairless body of the Lapith woman. They dragged off the bride and raped her, and they raped her, and her bridesmaid and page boys too. In the ensuing fight, a Lapith king was killed, and so began a feud that lasted for generations. I'm not going to read that again. Wow. They say this is recorded, and I'm going to make sure I spell it. It's called the Parthenon Frieze. Parthenon Frieze. I'm giving you the names and the information for you to look up. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm giving you the information so you can research yourself. Centaurs, the Lapiths, Lapiths, and you're going to see this for yourself. That is a wild story. It's a wild story. Let's keep on going. Wild story, man. As bones thickened, remember, if you watch chapter 2, we were talking about how we left from being us. We left from being a cosmic mind people, cosmic minds connected to the source, and how our world and how us, the vibration got lowered, and the material world became denser, and our cosmic mind merged with this material world, and everything became hardened, and this, what they call the lateran of Osiris, aka the pineal gland, became to be classified. I think that's the word they use, but shut down, and the bone structure formed. And once that happened, in chapter 2, it said that there began two parallel dimensions. One that was based off the spiritual world with the third eye, and one was another dimension based off the two eyes. That's what we learned on chapter 2. As bones thickened, the animal world began to feel its way. As bones thickened, the animal world began to feel its weight. Creation grew tired, and animals grew vicious, and they had to struggle to survive. As humanity continued to fall, so did nature. It became red in tooth and claw. If you guys remember the Freemason presentation I did when it was talking about the German Illuminati and all that, and talked about how at that time it wasn't Mother Nature, it wasn't the Divine Mother, but Mother Nature won with red tooth and claw. This was what presented at that time. Now, lions and wolves began to attack humans. Listen to this. Plants grew thorns to scratch and make the gathering of fruit difficult, and poisonous plants evolved like wolfsbane. The Parthenon Frieze also records battles against the Amazons, a race of warrior women who were the first to ride horses into battles. If you guys go on my TikTok, you can look at Cosmic Christ University on TikTok. I got these AI images of me and Amazon woman, because I have this great ability to remember certain aspects of my past life. And I remember in my past life, I was a youngin' surrounded by these beautiful Amazon women, surrounded by these like jungle thorns and these like houses or these huts that were, of course, livable, but they were like covered by plants. So I want to thank AI for being able to recapture that for me. But it says the Parthenon Frieze also records battle against the Amazons, a race of warrior women who were the first to ride horses into battle. An Amazon had to kill a man before she was allowed to marry. An Amazon woman had to kill a man before she was allowed to marry. Now, I didn't say marry a man or a woman, but I guess marry. Imagine if she wanted to fall in love with a man, an Amazon woman. She would have to kill a man, probably to prove to the Amazon sisters that no matter what, you're going to ride for us. And we don't care if you're married or what, but when it's all said and done, you're going to ride for your sisters. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But let's read that again. The Parthenon frieze also records battles against the Amazons, a race of warrior women who were the first to ride horses into battle. An Amazon had to kill a man before she was allowed to marry. Wearing armor of fur and carrying shields in a half-moon shape, their cavalry sifted down row upon row of foot soldiers. They were magnificent, and they represented a new form of human behavior, because hard on the heels of the possibility of death had come the possibility of killing and of murder. Cut us and we will bleed. Cut us hard or often enough and we will die. Some humans begin to delight in this. The book of Enoch, family, we're getting that closer to the Enoch. We're getting that much more closer to Enoch. Y'all, not yet, but we're getting there though, family. We're getting closer to Enoch. I thank you for your patience. The book of Enoch describes how the surface of the earth became covered with warring armies and says that human flesh itself had become perverse. Yeah. Because of the encasing bony skull and the enmeshing of the organs of spiritual perception, humans were now shut off not only from the gods ranged above them, but also from each other. A shadow was falling over human relations. It became possible for one center of consciousness to believe itself cut off from another. Am I my brother's keeper? Asked Cain, who represents the evolution of the new form of consciousness. I kind of want to read that again, but this has been a smooth presentation, so I feel like I don't need to. You guys think I need to read that part again? All right, we'll keep on going. This question would have meant nothing to Adam and Eve, who were like branches on the same tree. I am going to read that, but let's read that again. I do want to read that again. Because of this encasing, because family, look at us now. Please look at us now. We're still evolving to our spiritual self, but I mean, as far as this shell, this is where we're at. This wasn't always the case. We always wasn't in this. We were cosmic mind beings. But because of the encasing bony skull and the enmeshing of the organs of spiritual perception, humans were now shut off not only from the gods' range. So for those who wonder why we're having a hard time reaching the gods, we're now hearing the truth. We're now hearing an amazing explanation. As more as our structure became what it is now, it blocked our spiritual perception, guys. And now, all this is about to unwind now and reverse itself. But this is what we had to go through. And we've seen the effects of that civilizations afterwards. But let's just read that again to make sure we're all on one page. And this has been a beautiful presentation. Let me know if you feel the same. Very calm. Very informative. And we're already almost at an hour. Let's keep on going. Because of the encasing bony skull and the enmeshing of the organs of spiritual perception, humans were now shut off not only from the gods ranged above them, but also from each other. A shadow was falling over human relations. It became possible for one center of consciousness to believe itself cut off from another. Remember, we all came from the one source, but now it became possible for one center of consciousness to believe itself cut off from another. Let me say this again. We are now going to the age of Aquarius, in the age of knowing that we are all one. But at that time, it became possible for one center of consciousness to believe itself cut off from another one. Hence, am I my brother's keeper, which was asked by Cain, who represents the evolution of a new form of consciousness. This question would have meant nothing to Adam and Eve, who were like branches on the same tree. Now, my family, my question to you is, were they branches on the same tree because they were hermaphrodites? Because that's what they said that the first being was. God said, I create them in the image of God, both man and woman, both male and female. So let's keep on going. In the same way that we would be overwhelmed by the spirit world if they were not filtered out, if there were no filter on empathy, we would feel everyone's pain as our own, and so be completely overwhelmed by the suffering of others. Let's read that again. In the same way that we would be overwhelmed by the spirit worlds if they were not filtered out. Think about that. I once read a book one time that said that we probably would die of fright, but it went way more deeper than that. If we would actually see the faces every day, the spirits that are around us every day, if it wasn't filtered out, that ego is a big help to filter that out, by the way, too. But if we had to see with our human perception, if we had to see the spiritual world on a 24/7 basis, man, it would be a lot more people probably in a madhouse. Straight up. In the same way that we would be overwhelmed by the spirit world if they were not filtered out, if there were no filter on empathy, we would feel everyone's pain as our own and so be completely overwhelmed by the suffering of others. Without a degree of isolation, no human could experience him or herself as an individual. No one could feel the burning fire in the forehead that drove Cain onwards. But of course, there were pitfalls in this. History shows that humans have a horror of humans with other forms of consciousness. Let's say that again. History shows that humans have a horror of humans with other forms of consciousness. Can we agree on that one? I'll read that again. History shows that humans have a horror of humans with other forms of consciousness, which they often find hard to tolerate. Sometimes they feel the need to eradicate it from the face of the earth. You know where we're going with this. I know you do. We need only to think of the treatment by Europeans of the Aztecs, the near genocide of the Aborigines of Australia, or the attempt to wipe out gypsies by the Nazis. Later, we will see that since the time of Moses, the Jews have often been at the forefront of forging new forms of consciousness. For those who have been watching my university and the videos I have did, I have done more than enough videos on that one subject. Research my videos. Very powerful stuff. History shows that humans have a horror of humans with other forms of consciousness, which they often find hard to tolerate. Sometimes they feel the need to eradicate it from the face of the earth. We need only think of the treatment by Europeans of the Aztecs, the near genocide of the Aborigines of Australia, or the attempt to wipe out gypsies by the Nazis. Later we will see that since the time of Moses, the Jews have often been at the forefront of forging, that is a very important word there, family. If you don't know what forging means, try to forge a check if you want to. Let's see if it bounced back. The Jews have often been at the forefront of forging new forms of consciousness. Humans were now free to make mistakes, to choose the bad, and to enjoy it. It was no longer the case that humans received all their spiritual nourishment from the milky sap-filled breast of Mother Earth. The natural law and the moral law were no longer the same thing. The earth grew colder, harder, and more dangerous in many different ways. People struggled to survive and would sometimes find themselves stretched to the limits of endurance. They discovered that the road ahead would always be fraught with the danger of death, but unless they took the road, they would die anyway. From now on, they would have to put at risk what they value most, or they would lose it. Beyond a certain point, there is no return. That point, they discovered, must be reached. They discovered uncomfortable things about themselves too, that they had become brutalized by this new world. Let's read that again. They discovered uncomfortable things about themselves too, that they had become brutalized by this new world and had grown a hard protective carapace of habit. To break open this carapace and expose the sensitive part of themselves, the better part that brought them fully alive again, was a bloody and painful process that few could face. The world became darker, a place of paradox, where opposites meet and where it is painful to be a human, a world calling out for heroism. The largest and most terrifying of the monstrous progeny of Saturn came last. Typhoon emerged out of the sea, heading straight to Olympus, spitting fire from his mouth and blocking out the sun with his bat-like wings. He had the head of an ass, and when he emerged from the sea, the gods saw that below the waist he was nothing but a coiling mass of thousands of snakes. Zeus tried to fail him with thunderbolts, but Typhoon only struggled them aside. As Typhoon bore down upon him, Zeus then snatched the first synth that Kronos has used to castrate Uranus. But the monster's snake-like limbs wrapped themselves around the limbs of Zeus, holding them fast and snatching the Sith from him. Then, keeping the king of the gods pinned down, Typhoon cut out all his sinews. That's Sinews. Zeus is immortal and could not be killed, but without his sinews, he was completely helpless. Typhoon took the sinews away with him and retired to a cave to recuperate from his own wounds. Apollo and Pan then emerged from the shadows and hatched a plan. They went to find Cadmus, that's Cadmus, the dragon slayer hero, who was wandering the earth looking for his sister, Europa. And for those who are history scholars, here is yet another melanated sister, because before Europe was called Europe, it was known as Europa, and Europa, Europa, was named after a melanated sister. I'm going to read this again, and we're going to stop at it probably a good solid hour, because we're about to just get started with Enoch real soon. I know it's been a long journey, but we're about to talk to Enoch real soon. We have been giving you a chronological timeline of human existence before and after the gods. So there's no excuse for you not knowing who you are spiritually now. Typhoon took away the sinews, that's Sinews, away with him and retired to a cave to recuperate from his own wounds. Apollo and Pan then emerged from the shadows and hatched a plan. They went to find Cadmus, the dragon-slaying hero who was wandering the earth looking for his sister, Europa. She had been carried away by Zeus, disguised as a white bull. Now Apollo and Pan promised Cadmus that if he helped them, his quest would be over. Pan gave Cadmus his pipes, and disguised as a shepherd, the hero went to play for the wounded Typhoon. Never having heard music before, Typhoon was entranced by the strange new sound. Cadmus told him that it was nothing compared to the music he could make with a lyre, Lyre, but sadly the sinews on his lyre was broken. Typhoon handed over the sinews of Zeus, and Cadmus told him he needed to go back to his shepherd's hut to string his lyre. So it was that Zeus regained his sinews and was able to surprise the monster, overpower him, and bury him under the Mount Etna, Etna. The important part here is, family, the important part to note here is that Zeus was only saved with the help of a hero. The gods now needed humans. And as I hear the Typhoon story, it makes me think about Bobby Hemmett. Brother Bobby Hemmett's teaching about who melanated people was. Anyway, let's keep on going. The myths of the Greek heroes Cadmus, Hercules, Theseus, Theseus, and Jason are some of the most famous stories in human history. It might seem as if they are entirely missing from the biblical account, but according to the ancient tradition preserved in the secret societies, Cadmus is to be identified with Enoch, the first human in Hebrew tradition to whom the gods turned for help. Wow. So in part 4, we're going to have to redo Cadmus' story all over again. I kind of want to do his story all over again now, but now we're at an hour. Wow, we're at an hour. So Cadmus told him he needed to go back to his shepherd hut to string his lyre. So it was that Zeus was able to overpower Typhon or Typhoon. Zeus was only able to defeat Typhoon by the help of Cadmus. It says that Zeus, ever since then, had to credit his reign to the humans ever since that, because what Cadmus did. And we're going to end here. Family, we have finally entered Enoch. We have finally entered Enoch. Oh my gosh. The next presentation going to be lit. The important point to this note here is that Zeus was only saved with the help of a hero. The gods now needed humans. So if it wasn't for Cadmus, now we know as Enoch, it might have been a different dark primordial story. Let's keep on going, and we're going to end here. The myth of the Greek heroes, Cadmus, Hercules, Theseus, and Jason, are some of the most famous stories in human history. It might seem as if they are entirely missing from the biblical account, but according to the ancient tradition preserved in the secret societies, Cadmus, Cadmus, is to be identified with Enoch, the first human in Hebrew tradition to whom the gods turned for help. The Old Testament contains only a few enigmatic words on Enoch. Genesis chapter 5, verses 21 to 24. And Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah, and Enoch walked with God. After he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Enter Enoch. See you soon.